Welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. On this episode, I have my good friend Paddy McDonnell. He is working on another stand-up show. This show, there's a few tickets left for it, so I'll put links in. You can reach out to it. It's called On the Tools. What we talk about different things, how you get into comedy, what it's like to come from the area he came from and to do the things that he does now, and just a few things that I think will resonate with people who have a dream or a goal or an ambition, but are afraid to just take that step. So I hope you enjoy this. Feel free to reach out to me or Paddy with any questions that you have. And until the next time, have a great day. Welcome to this episode of the Limitation Is a Mirage podcast. I have a special guest today, someone that has worked the comedy circuit for years, and I've met him many times in Oma and a few different places, and we always have a laugh. So I wanted to get him on, and finally we've worked out a time. So it's Paddy McDonnell, or Paddy the Dagger, or Paddy the comedian, Paddy the replacement MC and dailies. Like, whenever I think of you, they're all the things that I know of you. One of the things that I think I'm most proud of, I've never seen the Dagger, yet I've been around you in so many situations, and people have chatted about it. And like, thankfully, I have escaped that. So,
what do you mean, thankfully?
I think I've been quite lucky in that regard. I think it's my ninja skills just kick in and I'm away.
Probably. Well, it's probably just comedians have seen it to see.
I know, but I'd be there. I've come back and like, you see what's going on. I'm like,
I know, but you're I know you're part of the thing, but it normally doesn't, like, certain people and all that don't get to see it too, or, you know.
I like that you say don't get to see it. Like, it's such a privilege. Oh, they don't get to. And what I realized too is no one knows what the fuck we're talking about. Which will make it even more fun. So, Paddy, do you want to give a brief description, like who you are, and then so the people that don't know you get to know you? Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, Liam. It's great to come and do it and get to chat to you and see you after a long time that we haven't seen each other. But yes, I'm Paddy McDonnell. I'm a comedian from West Belfast. As you know, that's a big part of my set. Grew up Falls Road, Divis, Waydrock, all the main bad areas that you could find in West Belfast. I've worked many jobs: doorman, joiner, credit card salesman, black taxi man. And it's just from that I've developed, got into the comedy circuit after an assault on myself, and I went into a bit of depression. So my wife put me forward, brought me to a comedy gig thinking we were just going to see it. I ended up doing 7 minutes, and then we're at where we're at now, 10 years down the line.
There's so much in there already. One of the stories I love about you is that story of your wife, like trying to do something because you had depression, rather than just let you wallow in it. Your wife was doing whatever she could to bring you out of it, because you weren't that type of person. But the best bit is, as I know the story, and I could be wrong, but she brought you to a comedy club, and then when you were there, the guy was like, "Oh, you're on," and you're going,
"Yeah,
no, I'm just here to what?" So
yeah,
I work with people's mindset all the time, and stage fright is something that people come to me for a lot. How the fuck did you go from sitting depressed? Like, we were generally my understanding of people that are depressed, you don't want to be the center of attention, you don't want to be out there, and you like doing that, and then without any prior knowledge going on stage. Like,
I just think, Liam, what backstory is just that I was assaulted and I went into depression. I lost my business, and Andrea was at the stage where she was going, I don't know what else to do with him. You know, he's just lost himself. Prior to that, they called me the gunslinger and all when I was in the bars, because I was a slagger and a joker and telling stories and jokes and just always having a laugh, and work was the exact same way. And I wasn't doing any of it. And Andrea put me in the situation where she asked somebody their opinion, what should I do? You know what he was like. And they were like, take him to the comedy club. If he likes comedy, take him to the comedy club, because you're bringing him back into an area that he's aware of and that he feels good in. If he loves comedy, and he goes to a comedy gig and after it's full of adrenaline, and they went, maybe that's a wee thing you could do for him, make him feel better. So she looked up Belfast comedy, and say she had that conversation on a Friday. There was one on the Monday night in the Pavilion, which is a known gig for people to go and do. It's an open mic, you don't get paid or anything. You go and you do your 7 minutes. So obviously I didn't know any of the guys in the circuit. I didn't know, the guy running it or anything at that stage. So Andrew just says to me on the Monday, and funny enough, that was the day the court case started for the thing that happened to me, the assault with the guy. And I was feeling really, really down. I was in the court that day and I was just feeling not great. And she says, no, come on, we'll go. And I was like, I don't really fancy it. And she says, listen, what else are you going to do? Sit in the house. So we went. We walked in the door. Andrew said the fella's name because she'd been emailing him. And he says, yes, yes, yes. No, that's dead on. And paid our money in. Says he doesn't have to pay in. And I was like, why not? And he was like, because you're on. And I was like, what do you mean I'm on? And he was like, you're on stage. You're doing 7 minutes. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And I don't know, but I seen after the first act, I felt part of that night. I felt like I was opening up a wee bit.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, do you know what? Get up there and talk, because that's what you need to do. You're not talking to anybody. You're not doing what you normally do, and you're good at it. Just get up and talk, even if you're not funny. You're talking in front of a few people and you feel better. There wasn't a big crowd. Let's just say there's probably 10 people there. So my team came around and I get up. And after the first couple of acts, I sort of went to myself, well, that's not that hard to do. You know, I didn't have the stage fright or anything. I was sort of saying, that's not that hard to do. Then people, in fairness, like they weren't getting roars of laughter, you know. So I sort of went to me, well, there's no pressure on you here. You know what I mean? So I just got up and done it and tried to make it as funny as I could. And I was just talking about being a daddy and having kids. And when I got off stage, everybody was like, that was brilliant. There was a guy come over and he says, yeah, that was the best of the night. That was really, really funny and stuff. So I think having people coming and saying that to you, and it felt like a bit of support, I was like, do you know what? It did. It felt really good. And I started feeling better about myself. And the guy that was running the night says, there's a competition in 4 weeks in Dungannon. I think you should do it. And if you're up for it. And Andrew says, what do you think? And I says, there's no harm in it. Like, why not? So I went and done that. And then it was like drugs. It just made me feel better in myself. And I went, I just need to keep doing that, because I really, you know, it was like as normal as somebody wanting to go out once a week to the bar. That's what I wanted to do, was do comedy.
Yeah.
And I just started doing it. And then I really got the bug for it. And I drove all over Ireland for about 8 or 9 months for nothing, just to do it. Anywhere and everywhere, somebody would give me mic time. So
Yeah.
I became addicted to it. I think Andrea at the time was a bit, she let me at the start. She was like, go ahead. But like after 2-3 years and you were gigging 3-4 times a week, she was going, Jesus Christ, like, you know, this is mental now. Sometimes I wish, we'll have the odd argument. She would say, I wish I didn't put you up for this and all, but I'm really glad she did, because I think it saved me a bit, you know.
Yeah.
It really pulled me out.
And the message that you deliver, like on stage, one of the things I really liked about you on stage was you were like, I was going to say like you're a normal guy, but you're fucking far. You're like me. You're normal, but you're far from normal. Like your stories are fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
But when you went on, people sitting in the crowd could look at you and think, fuck, he's just like me. He ends up in crazy situations. But like some of the stories you used to tell backstage and stuff, you'd be thinking like, how did that even come about?
Yeah. No.
So that, like, I think a lot of our story intertwined. Like the first time I ever ended up on stage was I was already performing, but I was performing just table hop and magic, and it was actually Terry Keys. Remember, he used to run dailies at the start.
Yeah.
It was him that just called me on stage. He was like, "Oh, and Liam's about to come on stage to do 5 minutes," and I was like, "What the fuck? What am I going to do when I get up there?" And just went and thought, "I'll just be me, and whatever happens, happens." And then same thing, just clicked, and I was like, "This is where I need to be. I need to be on a stage." So two things came up for me that I wanted to ask you about. First one is like, are you doing anything now to replace that, like gigging? So you're probably the same as me. You miss the stage. When you're on the stage, that's when you're on fire. Like this is when life's like.
Yeah.
So have you come up with any ways of dealing with that to like?
To be honest with you, I was doing wee bits and pieces of videos, and I was trying to do live stuff online, and I never really met anything that I really wanted to do. So apart from a walk, you know, up the mountain, because we've moved close to the mountain now, and I would do the mountain walk maybe just once or twice a week. But that was sort of helping me. You know what I mean? That was not 100%. Let's just say the creative part of me still, you know, going over and over in my head. And then it's mental because it's moved so quickly in the past month. And I mean that short a time where I done podcasts with Shane Todd, and that's all stuff that's been done years and years ago, like these stories. But likes of Aaron McCann and Shane and, you know, people off stage would have says, me, stories you tell in the green room are amazing. You know, like I know you go up and you do good stuff, but you're really mailing yourself down from the stuff. And I says, because people won't believe that all that happened to one person. Do you know what I mean? It was like, people won't believe that. And I done the thing with Shane Todd, and everybody was like going mental over it. And I was like, Jesus, maybe they're right. You know, so it just took off. And it basically just, when we done the first podcast, Shane says, that was that good. I would suggest you go and book somewhere because people's going to want to see you. And I was like, right, okay. And I booked just a lame night, and it sold out in half an hour. And the guy was like, you need to do a second night. And I says, no problem. That sold out in an hour and a half. And he says, we're going to have to do a third night and put a third night on and sold it. And I went, right, we need to stop because I'm going to do 7 or 8 nights in a row instead of doing one big gig here. Do you know what I mean? I said, so if instead of doing any more, just put it in the big room in the limelight, and that holds 450 or something. And I says, we'll do that, and that'll be the last one. And he came back and he says, listen, do you want to just move a gig till November? And I said, yeah, if that's what you want to do. And he came back and says, wait, well, I'm putting you in the Ulster Hall. And I was like, what? You know, you serious? Like, because I never even, Ulster Hall maybe one day, a couple of years down, but it's just mad that after 10 years, I've got to the stage now in the space of a month where you're going into a big room like that. You know, it's a bit crazy, but sometimes it happens like that in comedy. A lot of the ones that I would have spoke to, like Andrew Maxwell, Jason Manford, people like that, will tell you the same thing. You know, you're gigging away, feel like you're not getting nowhere, and then boom, it just happens. You know, probably the biggest one I've ever heard of is Liverpool comedian. No, what's his name? It's going to do my head in now. He was gigging in Leicester Festival. 12 people or something. 2 weeks later, he was doing Live the Apollo. Do you know what I mean? So it's just took one person to see him, and that just changed for him.
I think that whole thing, it takes like 10 years to become an overnight success. So that's sort of what's happening. You know, you've done all of the stuff and you've plugged away. Like I remember even in dailies, whenever we get stuck, if we knew we were going to be let down by someone on the day, we'd be like, just ring Paddy. Paddy will definitely jump in the car and come down and he'll blow people. Like, you're never thinking, fuck, how do we cover this or how do we big him up? We just like, we get Paddy, he'll come down, wreck the place, and it'll be fucking great.
I mean, for years there, you know, Oma was probably my best town in terms of comedy. It was just the room was right for me, and the crowd all got to know me, and it just one of them rooms that I go into, I know that look, this is going to be all right. This is my crowd, you know. Once I see me once, I had one bad gig in it. That was when Terry had it. And when I spoke to Terry, Terry says there was 3 people there that night. Paddy, you can't judge that gig on 3 people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was a way at the start. And then after that, it just, all them years, the gigs I've done in there with Arlo Hanlon and, you know, Tom Stade. Jesus, probably my favourite comedians, Tom Stade. And I played in the wee room like that with him. You know, he's laughing his head off and I come off and he's like, hey, man, that was great. I didn't understand the word of it, but it was fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
I was like, that no problem.
But whenever you go into the Davis voice, you see, you start to lose. Anyone from outside Ireland goes, what? Is this
well,
like...
sometimes people outside of Davis go like that. You know, when you have to slow down a bit. I have definitely adapted my voice and the way I speak on stage because sometimes I was getting overexcited and just like people hadn't a clue what you were doing, you know.
Yeah.
But definitely one of my favorite places to go, and everybody down there, like yourself, Connor Keys, Bowsy, Terry, there was never not a welcoming. You know what I mean? It felt that definitely wasn't a job. It was a bit of crack with the dates. You know what I mean? So the social aspect that as well was great. You know what I mean? There was no pricks basically up there. It was all nice people, and I have some great stories from it all. So it's just sad that we can't have it at the minute.
Yeah, we'll get back there. Just when we were talking about the way you changed your voice, that was again something that really connected me with you as a performer was how well you read a room. Like we might talk about your set beforehand, you say I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then when you come off, you did a completely different set, and you're like, oh, the room just seemed like they needed this, and like you're saying, you're paying attention to your voice, you're willing to change what you need to do about yourself to make the audience have the best experience. I think that's what makes a really great performer. You're not just going on and being great for you. You're going on to entertain and perform for an audience.
Yeah.
So that leads me to because we were talking about Divis as well. How I imagine Divis is kind of, whenever you talk about it, it sounds like Stroll Park where I grew up, where like you're not really expected to do anything. You're not going to be anybody. You might go into the just work in a factory or go to jail or something like that. You're not really aiming towards big things. What's it like coming from there to what you do now? Like it's bound to be completely different from where you saw yourself going.
Oh, I mean, I always loved comedy and stuff like that, but I never ever thought of becoming a comedian. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, but in terms of like being from there, I never really had that much expectation of doing anything big. With
Aye.
always like I was in school and I maybe had an idea of stuff that I wanted to do, and then you know left school, still didn't sort of know what I was doing. Then went working with my dad, who was a roofer. Didn't like roofing, so I liked joinery work. So went and studied that. Then went to America for a few years, and then came back from there. Got a family, got kids, and just tried to carry on. And then a few events happened to change that. So it was sort of like I don't know, but there's quite a few people. Like if you say West Belfast in total, like, and especially a great few of my friends, they're all very successful. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of successful people come from West Belfast. So I do think that some people put it down, and yes, like, it's bad parts of it, and there's bad things happen during lockdown. There was terrible for videos, but I mean they're no different from somebody from somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? And I hope I never lose that. I hope I never, if you did do really well, that you lost where you come from, because I think that defeats what you were doing. There's a lot of comedians, and the start they're so funny because they're doing about this and doing about that and doing, and then all of a sudden, a few years down the line, they've got a few quid and they live somewhere else, and they're just not the same person. And
Yeah.
I would hope not to lose that, because I actually love where I come from. I would never not tell people, and I never would have made up. My granny used to say to me, "Don't tell lies," because a lot of my friends would have says, "Right, we're going into the town here. You change your name to this. You change your name to that." My granny told me, "You are who you are. Tell people who you are and be proud of where you're from. If you do that, then you'll respect people where they're from as well." And to be honest with you, the places I've played, the people I've been with, I mean, you wouldn't dream of telling them, but they respected me because I walked out and just said what I did or who I was and where I was from. And they've probably never had interaction with people from there. So they're probably like, "Oh my God, they're not that different from us, you know."
Yeah.
So that's the way I look. But I never did. But I mean, there is a lot of people from West Belfast, a lot of people I know that are successful. So I know it's something that can be achieved no matter where you're from. It's just how
Yeah.
much you want it.
Aye, that's brilliant. Has there been, where's the main gig, like, or the biggest one you remember where you walked in and thought, like, this is, there's a complete different side of the world to you? Like, for the easiest example for me is I ended up doing a DUP gig once. And I walked in and they introduced me with my full Liam O'Neill and everything. And I was like, fuck, this is, and they had a big background that just looked like London initially, just looked like buildings. I think it was London, and I was like, "Oh, that's fine." But the guy that was on before me, he was like one of the chief DUP men, so they changed it to the British flag and DUP wrote all over the place. And I come on the stage from the side, so I don't see it. And there's a photo of me standing, like gesturing to the audience that looks like I'm running this whole rally. And I remember chatting to a few of them after, and they were very posh, and they chatted about like what they get up to and all. And I was thinking, fuck, this is complete. Like I never thought I would find myself from where I came from in a room where they're looking up to me. Whenever you would have been when I was younger, I would have been taught to like respect them. They've got money and like class or privilege or whatever the fuck way you want to put it. But has there ever been anywhere where you've walked in and you're like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to go down here?
The Hollywood Yacht Club's Christmas lunch. And I mean, I didn't really realize how working class I was until I was in that room. Now, the good thing about it, and the only thing that saved that day, was that there's people who are that rich. They're not posh in a sense because they're born rich. So they just are where the way they are.
Yeah,
I find there's people who get money, who change and try to be this thing that they're not. Whereas I find these people who are super, super rich can be as common as you because they didn't have to strive to be anything different. So they just come for money. And some of them can be pricks, don't get me wrong. But the table I was at, they were actually very, very sound. And one of them owned Fawn's building company. So straight away I could talk to him, and I had actually worked on their sites and knew what I was talking about, knew architects and people and all that he knew. So I think that helped the day. And then there was another guy there who came from a racing car family sort of thing, and they had quite a bit of money. But I knew of a guy who raced and stuff, and I knew the racing myself, so I was able to talk to him. So it maybe helped that day. But there were some guys there, and I mean, it was completely mental. That they usually for that lunch, what would happen is they would have a guy comes in and talks about sales and time knots and different things they got, things related to yachting.
Yeah.
And I was doing the Comedy Store in London. I was over working in London, and a guy seen me who was English but had lived here now in Belfast for 10 years, married a girl from Bangor, and he seen me in the Comedy Store and asked me would I be available to do it, and I says yeah. So he booked me. He was his first year organising it. So he says I'm doing something different because I hate the stuff that bring it in, because you're a big lunch in you and then somebody like that coming on talking. He says half the room sleeping. So
Yeah.
I just want to make it fun for the younger guys. So I went into there, sitting eating my lunch. Nobody knew who I was, and then I got up and done the act, and I got a great response. Like really did. Some of them definitely had puzzled looks about them, and I went into the toilet because I was sweating, and I was sitting in the cubicle just trying to get my breath back, and two of them came in, and I've been called some names in my day, right? From across the wall in the shank, oh Lord, playing football against Protestant teams. And also when I played for a Protestant team one time, getting called it by a Catholic team from Armagh. But I was sitting in the toilet and the two guys came in, really posh accents, older gentlemen, should I say. And one of them says to the other one, he says, what did you think of that man's act? And the other one turned around and says, no, I was speaking to Mark there. That was not an act. That man is actually from West Belfast. And he went, really? And he was like, yes, he really is a fignon.
Sounds like a fancy French name.
Doesn't it? It's like it was one of them. That's what gave me the idea for the joke about Fignetti and Fignata and all the different what Catholics are called in different countries, because that came from that. And I was laughing my head off because I was sitting going to myself, that's the nicest insult I've ever had. It's the way it was said there, Normally it's just, yeah, you're Fignon. It was Fignon. And I was like, that actually, I would get that tattooed on my arm. It's that nice. Do you know what I mean? And I just opened the cubicle door, and you know me, all the comedy's always on. And I opened the door, and the two of them looked in the mirror and seen it was me behind them in the cubicle. We were a bit shocked that I had heard them. And I just said to them before I walked out, lads, I think it's actually the terms Tiag, and walked out the door. And I was laughing the whole way home thinking about it. But that probably is a standard gig. Now, in saying that, I've done gigs. I was hoodwinked. I was told it was a community group when I got there. It was a Christmas dinner for the UDA.
How does that go?
Well, I went into the bar, and I pulled in the black taxi, and these 20 big skinheads surrounded the taxi. Who you looking? Who you the pair pick up? And I says, nobody, mate, I'm here to do a gig. And he went, oh, you the comedian fella? And I went down. He says, oh, I just actually we'll park it for you. Just get out now. And I was like, what's all this? No, mate, I'm not letting you drive my taxi. I don't even know you. And he says, listen, you're not driving it in there. I'll drive it in. You go into the front bar. So it goes into the front bar, and there's a guy meets me. And there's an old boy sitting with a German Shepherd. And then this other guy comes down. He says, my name's Philip. He says, I just want to tell you the truth before you go into the room. And I says, tell me the truth about what? He says, well, we sort of hoodwinked you a wee bit. And I says, what do you mean? He says, well, we didn't want to say to the fella that was booking your gigs who we were. And I went, right. And he says, we said we're a community group, but I don't want you going into the room and seeing faces and getting scared because there's some notorious people in there. And I was like, right, well, just tell me the truth, Philip. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me what the crack is. He was right with the UDA. And this is our Christmas dinner. And our leader, this is what he said, our leader seen you at a book signing in Belfast and thought you were brilliant. And we've booked you as a surprise for him. And I went, right, okay. He says, so when you go in, you're going to see him. You're going to get spooked. You might see a few other faces that's been on TV, not for the right reasons. And I was like, right, okay. So I'm walking up these stairs, like 27 stairs up in this hall. And Paddy McDonnell, the head of UDA, comes walking out of the toilet and goes, gee, Paddy McDonnell, that's a crack. And here's me. All right, Jackie. And he was like, how are you doing? And I'm dead on. He says, you were dead funny at that book signing and all. I says, and that City Hall gig you done St. Patrick's Day, that was dead funny. I really enjoyed it and all. He says, now these booked you, and it's meant to be a secret. He says, but I know all about it because they're just a pack of toots. Hold on, right? And I was like, right, okay. And he says, do me a wee favour. He says, when you go into the room, I've done Secret Santa, but I can't buy them all. There's 150 people in there. He says, so at any stage during your set, will you just mention to check under your seat? And I went, right, okay. So I goes into the room and guy stands up and goes, right now, everybody shut up. I booked this guy. It's a surprise for Jackie. Now, Jackie knows he's here now, but he's from over the wall. But he's a good guy. He's funny, right? So don't want you slapping or shouting at him. This is what he is. And I was like, right. So I goes on stage and he goes, this is Paddy McDonnell from Divis, And I walked on stage and everybody's just looking at me. And I went, you know what, I'll just do the thing for Jackie to get it out of the road now. And I says, lads, if you want to check onto your seats here just before I start. And these three fellas jumped up. One had no arm, one had an eye missing. And they were like, what do you say? And here's me, what's going on? But it turned out somebody from Divis had blew lemons up before in a bar or something. And Jackie done it as a joke. And they were raging. And Jackie stood up and went, here, sit down. I told him to say it for a bit of crack, but the rest of the room was in stitches. Do you know what I mean? Them three were hating it, but then by the end of it, they loved it. And they tried to book me again 3 or 4 times. Do you know what I mean? So the way they look at it is they've probably never met somebody from across the wall. You just don't know. It was a bit strange for him and a bit strange for me, but it actually works. When I go into Prada scenarios, it works.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they think, is that the way all lemons are, or do they think, do you know what, they're not too far away from us? I don't know. I've never had an answer from anybody.
It'd be interesting to know what they think, but then again, you're not the average person, so I guess again, one of the things that's great about you is I know that I could put you anywhere, and you would win everybody over. You take them onto your side. You tell a yarn, it would be funny. They would like it because you tell stories that, like that story there's mental, but there's bits of it that fits with people where they met the crazy man in their town when they open the door to the toilet and he comes out and they're like, oh fuck, what's he gonna do? Like there's wee bits that they can fit with. It's just the level of where you're at, and it makes sense why you're saying like people won't believe some of the stories. I've had the same issue with some of the stuff I've done in my life, and people go, "But you're just making that up." And you're like, "Well, that's what happened." One of the things that I thought there, I love the gigs where whoever introduces you starts with, "Right, everybody, shut up." Whenever that happens, you know it's a good audience when you're standing. You're like, "Right." I'm always doing a prep and I'm getting ready, and then I hear the man in the mic go, "Right, everybody, shut up!" And you're like, "Oh fuck, here we go." And you go out and it's just like mayhem unfolding. Um, whenever you have a situation like that happen, you're already going to a gig, but does your brain start going, This is a routine now? Like, is that how you? I'm just trying to work out creatively how you turn the normal parts of your life into like stories. Like, there's a story you told. I can't remember most of it, but just about shopping and shopping trolley and everything, and like it's just a normal. But then the wee madness things that happens with you involved in it, and then the way you tell it. So is that how you creatively work? That something happens?
I genuinely don't write anything down. So what I do is I get a story and I go, I'll tell that story and see what way it works out. And you maybe tell it 5 times and then you find when it's right. Do you know what I mean? So you go, that's perfect now. And it all comes from truth. Like, don't get me wrong, I exaggerate some bits of it. But that story is about going to Tesco's in Lisburn, and it literally happened. We had Podrick, and Andrea was, she wouldn't let him out of her sight, and she was struggling because she was breastfeeding and stuff like that. So I wasn't up in the middle of the night. She was doing all the work. So I says, listen, see tomorrow morning, get him fed, and I'll take him out, and you can get at least 2 hours kept. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me go out for 2 hours before he needs his next feed. I'll go out and do the shopping for you. You can stay in bed and just relax. And she's like, is he going to be all right? And I was like, grand, stop it. And I did. I took the car, was driving out, and she was ringing me literally 5 minutes down the road. And the police stopped me because I was on the phone. So now I exaggerate the story and say that she asked me where I was going. I said Tesco's, and I put her off the scent, and then blah, 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 blah. Where we come from? I says Twinbrook area. And she was like, right, I'll give you 9 points and a fine. That bit's exaggerated, but that's to make the joke about it, you know what I mean? That I'm from West Belfast. There's no way I'd be going to Tesco's. We all shop little and stuff like that. So that you just add them wee bits in to make people think about the scenario. But people will have the same thing where they've had a baby and they're taking it out, or a fella taking his baby out first thing, or a girl having panic attacks in her house thinking about her baby away with the daddy. That part of it, that's how you pull it all together. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Aye.
And I think with comedy, what I found is as long as you're not just abusing the audience constantly,
Mhm.
they'll enjoy you. And the secret that I always have is get the first 10 minutes where you have them loving you as a person. And if you
Yeah.
want to do a wee bit risque, do it further in the gig. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I always find it.
Even you would notice that whenever you do the MC and you do the crowd work, the first few you're nice with everyone. Like it's like sometimes I'll be watching it thinking, fuck, they have no idea that if they do give him a bit of
Information.
smart talk that they're fucked. Like, and
Yeah.
you had mentioned it earlier about being called. I don't know if you did the gunslinger thing, but you said you used to be known as the gunslinger. And do you think that's helped you in what you're doing as well? Because you know when you're on stage, no heckler is going to out heckle you. You can
Yeah, I'll get
physically,
the last line.
aye,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it won't
No,
be. I
I think all that prepped me to where I am today, if you know what I mean. Also, a lot of people don't know it about me, but I'm very good at imitating voices and people and their mannerisms. And it's
yeah
something that I haven't done too much in my act. I've done bits and pieces. So I have that in my armor, and it would have been when we were growing up. Say you were stopped by a police and stuff. I used to give a fake name and put a different accent on, and the many times I let on I was from Glasgow and they didn't know any different, and I was just over at my cousins, and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time because I didn't know them guys, and the cops are like, right there on you, and then you get them to drop you off somewhere where you know that you can walk into somebody's friends and go into the next house and away. I used to do that all the time, or let on to be a gypsy in the van, and just to see what we could get away with. And
yeah
I used to do all that for the crack. When we were in the van, I had a pulled in somewhere and said, "Excuse me, you couldn't tell me the way to the Europa Hotel from here." And people were standing, and you let them go on for 10 minutes trying to find the best way, and then at the end of it, you go, "Thanks very much for that, there. That's dead on, sir. Thank you." And then they're standing looking, going, "Chat." Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I think all that helps you that you can do that, and that helps me adapt to it. And I enjoy emceeing. I prefer doing just one set, than going in between people because you can get carried away. But I do enjoy emceeing because it gives you that bit of scope with the audience and messing about.
Now you always know whenever you get on stage for MC that there's going to be a bit of crack, and if if you can't get anything out of the audience, I suppose because of your life, like the life you've done different jobs and you've experienced life more than most. So whenever, like I've seen some MCs on, and they haven't got that much going. They've never had real jobs. They've just faffed about, and then whenever it starts to struggle, they've nowhere to
Go
pull
to.
anything out of. Whereas anybody can say anything, and there's probably a story in your head that goes, "Fuck, I remember one time when this happened," and then you can go into some sort of
Yeah.
story. I think that's another place where we are connected, because I used to be the guy that no one gave grief to when we were out in pubs because I was very quiet. I always feel like I'm a landmine, very quiet, don't do anything, very nice, polite. But if I have to go, I go all out, like
Yeah.
where they go, fuck, I shouldn't have
Yeah.
just started that. So whenever you're doing this now, and you didn't expect to be getting into comedy or doing anything like this, and you've now, like the Shane Todd podcast was brilliant, and as you said, it's like for me, whenever I watched that, I was like, that's the Paddy I know. That's the guy that we always see that comes backstage, and we're sitting having the crack, and you're like, you should just, if you whenever we chatted you backstage, I felt like picking you up and just setting you back on the stage and be like, there you go. Like everybody listen to this like so do you think this is like who you are now? You found what you want to do, and
Yeah. I think I'd never really done any of those stories unless I'd done it in the show. Like the Dagger show has only went out 3 times. And I think I mentioned to Chrissy before, and he says he would try and fit it in sometime over the years. But I feel that show could go back now, maybe next year again in a bigger room. And people then would, because basically you're talking. There's been 450 people have seen that over the 3 times it's been seen,
yeah,
and they seem to love it. So it was just if I had been able to have the exposure for it first, it's maybe a show that should have been left until I don't know. But there's plenty more in the tank of more to do. But yeah, no, I think it's just being transparent and open and just going for it and just telling whatever happened to you because you can be backed up with it because it's all there and people
yeah,
know about it. And you tell people, "Oh, I got my finger bit off," and they're like, "What?" And then you go Google it, and the many people's come back to me and went, I did not believe you until I read the newspaper article. It's on the. Then I went to know, and they went, it was like a big story, and I was thinking, no, it's just people don't relate that to the man that I am now or doing comedy.
Yeah.
So it is. But I think you're right, Liam. It is more about just get everything out there, just your life stories and your experiences. This new show that I'm doing is on the tools, and that's pretty much a lot of just funny stories from work that I've done, like whether it be the doorman, whether it be the joiner, whether it be the comedian, even that all can be in there, you know. So we'll just see how it goes.
I like the idea, like you're saying, just being open and transparent, and that just brings back to your granny statement of never lie. That's why I would never, when I wrote the book, whenever I'm on stage, whenever I'm doing anything, I just tell my stories. Like, this is what happened, and this is who I work with, or whatever it is. So if people do come going, but sure, that's fucking shit. You're like, well, like if I ever talk about the DUP one, and people, no, Liam O'Neill, doubt it. I'm like, here's a fucking picture of me standing.
Yeah, no.
I'm wearing a Chinese, like my Chinese jacket that, like, so I look fucking mental. Like,
I love that you went till the DUP gig in a Chinese jacket. I can just imagine them all going to you, here, give us another champagne, please, sir.
Whenever I'm on stage, if the people allow me in the hotel, I don't like wearing shoes or socks. So I'm always barefoot.
Yeah.
But for that gig, I had planned the gig out, and I was going to do walking and broken glass. It was one of the things I've been doing it for years since starting martial arts. I've always done it, but it's become very popular. And I did it about 4 years ago, and people were like, "Yeah, we were at a weekend retreat and we did that." And I was like, "Well, what the fuck?"
No. Yeah.
So I come up with a new idea. It's the first time I ever performed it. So I come out with a big bowl, and I'm wearing a Chinese jacket, and I strip off topless in front of all these like fully poised to the max people.
See, you can do that. I can't, Liam. Well, I can do it, but it doesn't get the same attention.
Well, I kneel down in front. You can see them all like, what the fuck? Why is he doing this? And I start washing my face and broken glass and washing my head and chest and all. So, like, whenever you tell them story, people go, you didn't? Ah, fuck. I'm just thinking, now, my mind's wandered to, you're saying, just because you said you doesn't get the same reaction. You have a routine with a monkey t-shirt. Is it a Robert De Niro routine?
It's a wrap. It was. I haven't done that in years, but I had put on loads of weight doing the comedy. I know I'm a bit heavy now, but I put on loads of weight, and I bought a t-shirt in Primark, and I had Robert De Niro, and Andre was going to me, that's too tight, and I was going, no, it's for a joke, and she went, well, what's a joke? And I hadn't even tried it yet, but I sucked away in, and when I sucked in, it looked like De Niro was smiling, and when I pushed it out, the belly out, it was like a big frown. Happy De Niro, sad. Oh, it was Al Pacino, it wasn't De Niro. Happy Pacino, sad Pacino. That was the joke. Got a great response, actually. Very cheap one, $2.99.
I haven't thought about that for ages, but just when you talked about the body, it just wandered into my head. I remember the first time I seen you do it in dailies, and you hadn't talked about it beforehand. So we would talk about what's going on. So whenever you did it, it's just fucking was brilliant. Like, again, I got the mixed up, but in my head, De Niro and Al Pacino were pretty much the same.
Yeah, I do it all the time too.
Yeah, they're the same movies. But for some reason, I thought of it a monkey too. So did you do it with a monkey t-shirt as well, or is my main?
No, I used to have a yellow monkey t-shirt that I used to wear, but there was no joke on that. And then I had the Ardle t-shirt made.
That's right.
And I done that. Do you know, see when you think about it, almost the t-shirt, because I done that, then I done Fergal Mullen, the front row Fergal. And the boys got a t-shirt made, and Chris was like, look, this is too small for you, but you have to do it. You're the t-shirt man. And I put on this wee tape thing and went out for Fergal Mullen. So I've done a lot of t-shirt gags up in thing, more so than anywhere else. Now I'm thinking, a lot of my comedy does come from it. I remember, I don't know if you can remember this, but you would have been starting to go to dailies quite a bit. And my granny used to do this party piece where she got the newspaper and she ripped it. She used to get people to rip pieces off a page in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And she would look at it and she'd go, try and pull. I don't know if you were there, were you?
I got
so you sort of inspired me to do something like that, because I remember my granny doing it. But I actually stopped it because I was freaking myself out, because I was constantly getting stuff right.
Yeah.
It actually looked like something you would have done. And you were like, how did he know what? And I just went, what's spooking me now that I'm getting this right all the time. I'm not meant to get it right. I'm meant to get it wrong, so it's funnier. But then it used to, instead of getting a big laugh, you were getting a big, no, because you knew, and people were like, how'd you know? Somebody must have told you that. And I was going, no. And then I sort of went to myself, I'm going to stop it because it's not what I expected to do. It was, my granny used to get you to do that. People that didn't know her, like, and she'd done it at the parties. And then after like 10 times, she'd have went, so do you not think I'm reading all this here now, I put it all together. And the one thing that it tells me about is you're too old to believe in magic. And that's meant to be that you were, but that part never worked for me. But I always got a shot thing. But I done it up in Oma. And it was like the guy worked somewhere and I got that right. And then he was a member of Sinn Féin Youth or something. I got that right. I done it in Newcastle. And the guy was a member of the Ulster Unionist Young Party. And the piece that he ripped off was that. And then the next bit he ripped off, it was house blinds, cheap house blinds thing. And his dad owned a house blinds, blinds for windows company. And the place just, so it sort of, I lost my funny after that because they were just like, how did he know that? Do you know what I mean? And then it's more sometimes you're thinking, he's from Divis. Is he an intelligence officer for some organization or something?
I remember doing it because you came off stage and we chatted and you were like, fucking, because I didn't know what you were going to do. So when you did it, I was like, fucking, that was, so I've seen loads of people do a variation of that in cold reading. And I'm like, that's something I would do. I was like, you get that. How do you do that? And you were like, I don't know. It's freaking me out. I don't know. And then I had people asking me after the gig as they were leaving, so you had a hand in Paddy's routine, did you? And I was like, I didn't have fucking anything to do with it. The fucker just did it.
I'm actually flattered by it that people thought that.
But that one of the things I thought about when you did it, again, it's just when we're talking about it, it's just you have such a good rapport with the audience and your awareness of what's going on in the room is there. And you're a people person. You've been around so many people that whenever you told me you didn't know how you did it, I was like, well, you're that switched on that it's just, you feed off everything. So it's a bad routine for you because it works because of your personality and you're actually able to, because I've tried to teach routines like that to magicians that have hired me to help them with shows, and their personality and their understanding of people, because they haven't done anything other than magic, is bad. So they can't pull themselves out of a hole. Whereas yours is that switched on that you're fucking just doing it. You're doing it by accident that you freak yourself out and you don't want to do it. But now I remember once you met, I'd forgot about that, but once you'd said it, I was like, fuck, that's right. People come up, we go, no, you know how you did that, didn't you? I'm like,
it was always you that inspired me to try it out just to see if it worked. Because on the way to gigs, I'm always thinking of things. So on the way up, I just stopped at a petrol station just before getting into Oma, and I went, no, I'll give this a go. And Oma's the place where I would try everything, by the way.
Yeah.
So I had the balls to try anything in Oma, anything at all, and I knew if it worked or if it didn't work. Do you know what I mean? So
the audience in Oma were always brilliant. Like you could get away with. It was where I tried all my new routines for about 5 years. Like I used to do the walk around before the show started for an hour and I'd try all my close up. And then anytime I had a routine, I'd go to Chrissy and be like, stick me on stage there for 10 minutes. He's like, how long do you need? I'm like, I'm going to say 10, but I don't know how the routine's going to work out. So I don't know if it's going to fucking. But it's also the one place where I've had the drunkest fuckers on stage with me because I can't see with the light. And I'm like, oh, normally everybody's fine. And I just be like, right, you up on. And as they're coming towards me, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
But even the drunks are nice. Like off mic, they're like, here, I'm sorry.
I think Oma, they knew that they wanted to be entertained. It isn't the place where people were dragged to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you know, like me trying to set up a gig in Belfast in a certain bar, and I was asking people to bring people, So sometimes when you get that many in the room that didn't really want to be there, just takes one bad thing for them to switch off. Whereas at Oma, the quality and the gigs that was getting put on, they knew they were going to get entertained. So when people went, they were excited. They were talking about it. They were talking about the last one. So they're saying this one's going to be brilliant. And your man's this and your man's that. I'm not saying that nobody didn't have a bad gig in it, but it was that good of it. It'd be hard to be bad in that room. That was my point. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because they've paid the money. They want entertained. There's people go to gigs and they don't want entertained. They want to sit and talk to their work colleagues about what happened all week. And they just see this as a way for them to get out of the house. So people like that are a nightmare in gigs. I had two in like when Shane was on for me. And Shane sold the gigs out for me. And his dad was sitting there and his dad was annoyed and I was annoyed. And then I went down to them and they went, we bring 30 people here every month for you. And I was like, well, I don't want this here if you're going to do that. I know, yes, it's 30 people. It's brilliant. But I mean, I can't have you in the room if you're not going to show respect till the acts, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and I'm sure you come across. I think your job's very hard, where there's either the people that want to be entertained and just enjoy it. Like, that's me. I can't explain what you do,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be amazed at it. And I could watch you all night doing wee tricks and all the wee things, and I'm amazed at it. And I'm like, do you know what? That's class. I don't sit and go, he's trying to be yes, and it's just a trick. It's not. You have people out there it's like that. And you also, people West Belfast, like me being a comedian, they get a lot of them going, you think you're funny. You weren't even that funny, you know, at school and all. And what normally, and why they feel the need to tell me, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's for them as to feel better about themselves. So what I do is I go, listen, I'll get you set up, put you in an open mic night, help you out with your set if you want. And if you think you can do the business, I wouldn't stop anybody. I mean, I get into it, I'd surely help somebody. And I had one that was like, oh, I will. And I set the gig and all up for him, open mic and stuff. And he was going along. I was going to go along with him. And on the day, he says, I can't do it.
Aye.
And I was like, well, there you go. And there's no more messages there for me saying, who do you think you are? I says, now you got the feeling, and if here's me, you might be funny, but if you can't get up on that stage, it's not going to work for you. If you get up there and stumble, and that won't work. You have to have positivity. You have to get up and try it. And your first gig mightn't go right, but if it feels good, do it again, try it, and then see. But that's what people have. So I think your job's hard from that point of view.
It's the same as yours as well. Like if I'm in a room and 90% people want to be there, but there's 10 that don't, they can suck people in. I suppose the only difference is if you miss a bit of my, like say I'm doing something and you miss that bit and it appears over here and they see it and they're like, what? Like I need to keep people's retention to do certain things. Although like the person who's worse for me is the person not fully engaged that's watching, because then they're not retaining what I want them to. They're just seeing what they want and go, all right, it's in his hand now. But I have ways with dealing with that. I remember doing it with a guy. I always carry sponge balls in my pocket in case I ever meet kids when I'm at gigs. So I would be gigging away doing all the mentalism and stuff, and then a kid would appear and I'd do magic for a kid. Normally what I do is make the sponge balls appear in their hand, and then I say to them, if you stand there and hold them tight for the next 5 minutes and don't speak, they'll multiply. And then that kid will stand for 5 minutes and I can work the whole table. And then I can come back to the kid and the kid hasn't moved and then I'll do something. But I remember a guy just being a complete wanker about it. And I put a sponge in one hand and a sponge in the other and told him that they would swap places if he closed his eyes. And I kept going. I did it like a street magician. I got a crowd of about 50. It was outside Main Street, so it was about 50, 100 people there. And he's standing like this. And I just fucked off. I have no idea what happened or how long he stayed there for.
He's still standing there. Is this fella ever coming back?
So I just left. I was like, right, and you'll feel it. And then I was just like,
when he opened his hands, it obviously was what you said would happen, right?
Oh, when he opened his hand, there was nothing in any hand. I needed them, they're mine. So when he opened his hands, so to the new people that came around, it's just a guy who then opens his hands and nothing happens. And I assume says, oh, the fucking magician did it. And they're going, that's right. So again, I suppose it's because we've lived outside of what we do. Like I was never just a magician. You're never just a comedian. We're able to deal with everything. So I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, so I'm going to round off. I just have a question. Is there anything that you would say to people, like, because we know like the conversation started with you talking about depression and then like getting into stuff that people would never think of doing. Have you any like anything that you would like to say to people that are just thinking about trying something new or trying something different or trying to develop confidence or self-belief?
I think if you have something in your head that you think you would like to do or try to do it, try and do it. And also on top of that, what I would say to them is, yes, in whatever you're trying to do, there's going to be people who think they're brilliant at it and think new people to it are crap. But you're also going to have people along the way who are wanting to do it or are established doing it, and they would more than likely help you. Mm-hmm. And I would just say to people that I wouldn't have took the step in the comedy. I don't think it would have happened. Only Andrew done it that time. So sometimes talking to somebody you know and letting them know how you feel about something, or that's something you would like, or just mention it. And people normally do that. But if you know somebody that would sort of help you along or push you to it more, tell them. You know, if there's somebody that you maybe haven't told before and you just said, tell them what do you think about that straight away. If they go, wait up, don't be doing that, don't tell them no more. Find somebody that's going to listen, and then try and get into it, because there's always something else out there. I mean, I know I used to torture you about training and stuff, because I used to train an awful lot. And now with the kids and all, I make excuses about not doing it.
Yeah.
I don't, and I never made excuses for not doing comedy. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if I really wanted to do it, I just get fearful from it, and my weight goes up and down and stuff like that. But I think my main love is for my comedy and my kids, my family. So training gets put to the back. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just hope maybe I get to a stage where I can do everything for the family. Comedy's only maybe one gig every other week, and you're doing the bigger ones, so you don't have to do loads, and that you would just be able to have that time during the day. You're not working as a joiner or something like that, that you can go and do your things that you need to do during the day. Because then I would get involved in it, you know. But
even the way you just described that, like you're saying to people that they should go and do whatever it is they feel like they should do, and there's going to be loads of people going, it's all well and good for you when you don't have fuck all else to do. Then you added, you have your job, you have your family, you have the travel, you have fucking loads going on, and still are chasing your passion and your love. So if you can do it and make time to do it, then like you said, if you really want to do it, you'll do it. So I like the idea of keep reaching out to people till you find the one person that goes, I'll help you with it. Yeah, no, that's good. Because again, same as all. When I said I want to be a martial artist, I'm pointing at my weapons for. When I was like,
your house is like my house, only it's all guns. I have my wall at the back.
that's why we had to change the camera angle. I'm allowed these. But when I said I was going to do,
you know what? There's loads of houses in Divis look like that.
I could be in Divis, well, you know.
They love it.
But like people would shoot you down. Eventually, you find someone that goes, fuck, that's me. I try that. That'll be good. So no, I love that. Thank you very much. How does people find you? Reach out to you? Where's the best place to get you?
Twitter, I'm Paddy the Dagger. On Instagram, I'm Paddy McDonnell Comedian, and on Facebook, just Paddy McDonnell. Nothing else on it. I'd just like to say that hopefully I'm back gigging in Oma soon, and if people want to get tickets, there's limited amount left. I say limited, probably 170, 180 for the Ulster Hall in November. It's something for everybody to look forward to, and just people keep an eye out, and any followers I get it. I interact with everybody, and you know, there's nothing that you can't ask me or send a message, and I'm there, and just that's it, man.
Brilliant. I'll put all the links below as well, so everyone can find you here. Paddy, I loved it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in, and I will speak to you again soon.